What's the best real-life example you've witnessed of someone destroying their own happiness? Story 1. A good friend I worked with for years was married to a great dude, super nice, and everyone loved him, just a great guy all around. They had a couple middle school-aged kids too. I think she was going through a midlife crisis type thing, but anyway, she reconnected with her old high school boyfriend on Feb, and they started having an affair. She ended up telling her husband about it and left him for the other guy. Her husband was great about it, wanted her to be happy, great at co-parenting, and didn't want to make anything harder on the kids, etc. The old HS boyfriend was toxic as hell. I met him a few times, and he was an absolute dick. They fought constantly. Every other week they were breaking up, kicking each other out of her condo, or he'd just go missing for days at a time, and she'd be a wreck wondering where he was, which was usually a couple hours away at the beach on a drug bender with his friends. He's in his late 40s too. She said she got bored with her life with her husband and wasn't attracted to him anymore, but I think she just went off the deep end and wanted something that wasn't there anymore, that feeling and excitement of young puppy love, but that's not what she got. I think some people just need drama in their life. I felt like she threw away a happy life just because she missed the drama. Story 2. My ex-neighbor. Nice guy, managed a hot music venue in Leh, partied a fair bit. One day he didn't have enough cash on him for coke, so he begged his dealer to sell him crack instead. Dealer told him it was a bad idea, but would sell to him because that's what dealers do. Guy insisted. I know this because the dealer knocked on my door and told me to watch out for him because he was making some bad decisions. A week later, I noticed my neighbor's normally full of music apartment was deadly quiet. Went up there and found him passed out in literally a foot of garbage. Chip bags, takeout wrappers, cardboard boxes. It was like he carried all of our trash out of the dumpster behind the building and dumped it on his floor. Then his boss, who is awesome, paid to send my neighbor to rehab and guaranteed his job would be waiting for him when he got back. Neighbor broke out of rehab 2 days in. A month later, I found out he had gone back to his home, moved in with his parents. This guy was in his late 30s, and then OD'd on their floor. Don't crack, kids. Story 3. Knew a guy that worked for a small, publicly traded company, a penny stock. It became a meme stock around the GameStop era. His holdings went from about $50,000 to $7 million in a few weeks. He knew the valuations were complete bullshit, but refused to sell. He said $10 million was his fuck you money number, and only when it hit that would he sell. I begged him to sell because it was obvious it was a short-term phenomenon, and he had made a lot of bad bets in his life. The company lost about 99% of its value from its high. He did get out about $500,000. Taxes got about 30% of it, but watch almost all of it evaporate. He's absolutely miserable at his new job. He could have retired at a young age. Still can't believe he did it, like throwing away a lottery ticket. Story 4. I have a family member who inherited around $500,000 in cash and assets when his mother died. He had a decent job at the time. This inheritance meant that he started taking longer vacations and stopped consistently working. He bought a sports car and paid off the 2 pre-built condos that his mother had put down payments on, but sold one immediately at a loss, and then rented the other out for a while until his original tenants moved out, then let it sit vacant for over a year and sold it at a loss. He loaned money to his half-sister to pay for tuition at a job that would never allow her to repay him. He bought every new and interesting piece of electronics. The electronics eventually caught up with him. He went on holiday to the USA, and on his way back across the border, the guards wanted to search his laptop, which led to the discovery of child porn. He was also trying to groom his niece, daughter of the half-sister. There wasn't much money left from the estate at that point. He was arrested and only managed to stay out of jail on a technicality that a very expensive lawyer found. He paid mid-$50,000 for his defense. The 2 or 3 years that the criminal defense was going on, he didn't work at all, just dipped out on his employer, who would have continued employing him. He sold the sports car at a loss, sold his last remaining property, the condo, at a loss, sold a bunch of his expensive toys at a loss, ended up penniless, actually probably bankrupt, but not in jail. Now his life consists of living in a small rented bedroom and working as a local trucker. He didn't just destroy his life, he nuked it from orbit and then salted the ground. He's currently in his late 40s and will probably never be able to retire. Most of the family won't speak to him at all. Story 5. My parents separated earlier this year. It was 100% my dad's fault due to being an abusive textbook narcissist. Mom put their house up for sale, and he had 2 months to sort out his move. He claimed to have nothing, no support, and nowhere to go. My husband and I took pity on him, and despite having a newborn and both working, helped him pack, sell off the extra furniture to get him some cash, and I found him a secure place to buy in his budget. He turned around and said he didn't want to move into the type of place I found, an over 50s village, he's 73, because he wouldn't be able to take chicks back there to fuck. He then refused to leave the property and said the cops would have to shoot him to get him out of the house. When I put pressure on him, because otherwise the sale would have fallen over and they would have been sued, he threatened suicide, which he does absolutely every time something isn't going his way, and to burn the house down repeatedly, including in front of my 7-year-old kid. Eventually he does comply, and we move him into the granny flat of a woman he met playing pokies, slot machines, for you US types, and who is apparently a millionaire from a famous family. I call bullshit, but he clearly thinks he's found someone new to mooch off. They have been at the pokies every day for months now. His money won't last long at this rate. Then, I find out that through all this, all the stress and bullshit he put me through when I should have been in a happy new baby cocoon, he actually had an offer from a longtime friend to move in with him and his wife, and that they had a whole team of people willing to help him with his move. Considering that he ghosted them after they made that offer though, they have since decided to discontinue the friendship since he's shown he didn't value it or them. Guess what? My husband and I are also done with him. I was the last kid that spoke to him. So he went from being married with a family to living in insecure housing, hurtling towards poverty and homelessness, having burned every bridge he had, all because he is too narcissistic to accept that he is less than perfect and that he is ultimately responsible for his own life. Story 6. My oldest cousin used to get regularly verbally abused by my extremely strict religious aunt growing up, and used to complain to me and my sister about the treatment he got. My paternal grandmother and my parents tried to intervene numerous times, but to no avail, as my uncle, my dad's younger brother, used to support the treatment that my aunt gave to my 2 cousins. Sadly, nothing really got done in the end. Fast forward to now. At 21 years old, my oldest cousin has now become a fundamentalist Christian who posts constantly on Instagram about it. What's really sad is, he doesn't trust anybody who doesn't go along with his beliefs, even family members, and he's extremely dismissive and hateful of anybody who lives a different life to him. Sadly, this includes my grandmother, and it is breaking her heart that one of her grandkids refuses to speak to her, just because she doesn't share his beliefs. Story 7. An ex-friend of my wife's. She had a bit of a wild past, but had settled down with a good guy. He had a great job, had been investing in real estate since his early 20s, so at 40, she was 30, was well on his way to retiring early. They had 2 kids together. She didn't want to work, and never had. He was fine with that. Life was rosy. Then after 10 years, he decided instead of him retiring when their girls finished high school and traveling the world, they should start to splash the cash around now. He wanted to stick to the plan, live fairly modestly now, albeit in a beautiful house, and taking a nice holiday every year, and then living it up later and still be able to set the kids up. She spent hours complaining to my wife about how boring this plan was, and she couldn't understand why she can't just buy a Porsche right now and just live for today, rather than have some vague future fun. Her eventual solution was to live out her Sons of Anarchy fantasy and start banging the Mongols gang member she met at school drop-off. That lasted all of about a month before her husband found out. He kicked her out of the house. She tried to get the biker to threaten him. The biker instead decided to drop her like a hot potato. Husband went for full custody with evidence she had been banging a known criminal and drug dealer. Daughters were old enough to place 100% blame on her. Last I heard, she was being kicked out of her rental and facing homelessness because she has never held a job for more than a month in her life and has always found dudes to pick up the tab. But now, as a single mother pushing 40, that option is off the table. She's my wife's ex-friend because her daughters and ours are close friends, and I always got along with her husband much more than I ever liked her, so her husband won us the divorce as well. Story 8. He was miserable at a data entry company in Texas. I encouraged him to apply for his dream job for a company that was out of state. I told him if he gets the gig, he can figure out the move over there, and he'll be making enough to move his girlfriend and her 2 kids. I said that, of course, it'll be a difficult move, but he has to follow his dreams and passions. Well, they made him an offer above what he asked for. I remember the day he got the news. He called me crying, and I cried too cause I was so fucking happy for him. He deserved it, and he is a good person. His girlfriend was absolutely not ok with it, and she said he only supported him when he applied because she didn't expect him to get an offer. She threatened to break up with him, and even accused him of abandoning his children, and forcing the children to be raised without a father. Even though they weren't his children, they had only been dating a year, and her kids were 8 and 12 at the time. He finally gave in and turned down the offer. I was so disappointed, and I was upset with her. She called some time later and yelled at me for getting his hopes up, even though I supposedly knew they would be a problem with her. She also accused me of trying to get him to break up with her. After that, he and I hung out less and less till finally communication stopped altogether. About a year later, he sent me a message saying that he hated me for putting him in that dilemma. That honestly hurt the most. That was about 20 years ago. He's still at the same data entry company, and he got his first promotion. He's now a senior software engineer after being stuck with the junior title for 20 goddamn years. Anyway, the company he wanted to work for was Boston Dynamics. Story 9. I work in psych. People are constant lie, ruining their lives with drugs and alcohol. We offer them help. They say "ok," and then they leave. They don't pick up their meds. They don't get rehab. They go straight to their substance of choice. This is part of the reason why I care for people, not about them. Seeing people continually ruin their lives and allowing yourself to care is a sure way to have a very sad life. When they are with me, I do my damnedest to make sure they get the best care they can. Once they leave, it's on them. Not my problem anymore. Sometimes I think, I'll see ya in a month with less teeth. But again, not my problem. My problem is ensuring we have enough food on the table, that our health is good, and that the kittens feel loved along with my wife. As for the patients, it's not my problem anymore.